Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me on another episode of The Fearless Factory. And today, I'm talking about the fear of your identity. Now, this past week, I talked about the fear of reprogramming and the concept of how a person is programmed or domesticated and how to undo that. And I ended that episode by telling you to claim the confidence of knowing who you are. So last week, that was the start of what I'm going to finish today. And I believe that this topic is very important. It's one of the most important things that I will talk to you about, because I believe that our identity is one of the most important facets of who we are as human beings. I believe our identities shape and impact all parts of our lives, our decision making, our actions, our behavior, our attitudes, how we live our lives, all stem from how we identify ourselves or how we allow the world to identify us. And what I know for sure is that either one or two things will take place in all of our lives. Either we will form and create our own identities, or we will allow the world to assign an identity to us. And let me tell you this: if you allow the world to assign you an identity, I guarantee you that it will not be in your best interest or to your benefit. One of the most powerful things that you could ever do is to create, inform, and empowering and liberating identity for yourself. And all areas of your life will stem from that identity. So right now, I'm going to walk through three different aspects of your identity. First, I need you to understand the power of your identity. Two, I'm going to talk about the identity equation and how we identify ourselves versus how the outside world identifies us. And third, I'm going to ask you and challenge you to ask yourself, who are you? Now, Joel Osteen has said that whatever follows I am will eventually find you. And I believe that. I believe that an I am statement is the most powerful that you could ever make, because how you identify yourself permeates through your entire life. And that's why your I am and your identity must be strong and permanent and above and transcended to the current conditions and circumstances of your life. So right now, if you identify yourself by what you own, earn, who you associate with, or where you work or where you live, your I am and your identity is weak and is susceptible to being crushed and destroyed at the slight change in any of those circumstances. So that's why your I am has to be much deeper than that and much more permanent than the current state of your life. And this is especially important this time of year. Now, this is the season of lofty resolutions, wishful thinking, and high hopes as we end our current year and are about to go into the next year. what I want you to do is to understand the power of your identity and the potential that it has to change your life. So this year, I want you to shift the focus from resolutions and what you want to do and put the focus on who you are. Because if you can firmly plant yourself in who you are and create a strong identity for yourself, then what you want to do and accomplish will follow. So for this coming year, if you want to be successful in a certain area of your life, focus on creating an identity of success, and then being successful will eventually follow and find you. Now, I believe that Elon Musk is a great example of this. How can somebody be so successful in very different industries that require a different type of knowledge and skill set? I'm talking about from e-commerce with PayPal, from the automotive industry with Tesla, and now with rockets with SpaceX. How can one person be so successful in all these different arenas? And I believe that it is because Elon Musk has created an identity of success. He is not just successful in his endeavors. He is the definition of success, and all of the characteristics and qualities of a person that go along with that identity follows him wherever he is and with whatever he is doing. And that's why he is successful as a result of having the identity of being a success. Now, I'm also aware that for so many of us, at certain times, that our identity can put us at odds with people and the world around us as a result of making us stand out and be just a little bit different and outside of the social norms of our world. So what do you do when your identity is causing you some discomfort, ridicule, and judgment? I say embrace it. That's what I did. Right now, if people are wanting you to just lay down and conform, resist it. Be who you are. And if you don't, you might get a little bit of comfort and acceptance in the short term, but in the long run, you will sacrifice who you are, who you were ultimately meant to be, and what your mission was, what you were supposed to do with your life. You can miss all that just to hang on to a little bit of comfort and acceptance of being who the world wanted you to be, instead of being who you really are. I recently read a book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and he addressed this, and I want to read you a passage from his book. And it says, the realization that you are different from others may force you to disidentify from socially conditioned patterns of thought and behavior. This will automatically raise your level of consciousness above the unconscious majority. So don't give up who you are, your identity, for the temporary comfort of conformity and acceptance. I guarantee you that it will not be worth it. And you have much more to gain by embracing the resistance and the reality of your identity than settling for the temporary comfort of being who the world and the people around you are demanding that you be. But now the question is, how do we identify ourselves? And while I was thinking about this and how to practically break down how we develop identities for ourselves and how the outside world develops an identity for us, I thought about a quote from George W. Bush, and it says, "Far too often we judge other groups by their worst examples, while judging ourselves by our best intentions." And from that quote is when I realized that that's it. How we and the outside world forms an identity for us is based on two things: our intent and actions. And that's when I developed the identity equation. Intent plus action equals your identity. Now, this equation, while it's applicable for how we identify ourselves, as well as how the world identifies us, each component of the equation is weighted a lot differently for each scenario. So for the outside world, this equation is like this: our intent plus 100 times our action equals our identity. And for ourselves, it's the opposite. It's 100 times our intention plus action is equal to our identity. You see what I'm getting at? We identify ourselves based on our intentions, our best intentions, while the outside world judges us based on what we do. Now, I'm not telling you to substitute the identity that you have for yourself for how the world identifies you, but you must be aware and cognizant of the realities of how people see and judge you, because there might be some blind spots that you don't see if you are only in your own head and seeing your own perspective about who you really are, and not just who you think you are or who you want to be. So I challenge you to start moving away from only focusing on your intentions when you think about your identity and who you are, and focus on your actions. What manifests out of your intentions is who you really are. And it's how you show up in the world, and it's how you impact the world and your own life. It's what you do that ultimately really matters. And finally, who are you? Who are you is what I want you to ultimately walk away with. I want to challenge you to ask yourself that question and to really examine your identity. And I don't mean just who you want to be, but who you currently are. And I think that sometimes we get the two confused and think that who we see ourselves as being in our heads at some point in time in our lives is our identity. But that's not the case. I think that it's a difference in having a vision and a mental concept of who you are, and knowing who you are. And knowing is feeling. That's a deeper level. I need you to feel who you are. You might think that I am strong and courageous and resilient, but when you get up in the morning and go about your day, is that what you feel? Do you feel the strength that you try and project in your head? Do you feel the resilience that you want others to see and that you want to convince yourself of? I want you to feel out your identity. I want you to get out of your head and get here and feel out who you are. That's the only way to ultimately to build yourself up into who you want to be and to create the identity that you want to have in this world. Is to get real. It's to get uncomfortably and vulnerably real about who you are. And right now, if you define yourself by what you earn, what you own, where you work, who you associate with, that is a weak and vulnerable identity, and it will come crashing down at some point in time because it's circumstantial, and life can change on you at the drop of a dime. I heard this quote from Iyanla Vanzant, and she said that with or without money, we will all live out what we feel about ourselves. And I'm paraphrasing, and I believe that regardless of all the things that we put our faith and our confidence into, that we will ultimately live out who we think we are and how we feel about ourselves. Do you know anybody that on the surface has everything, but is still living out an identity that is not relevant to their current state? It's because your identity is above that. It's above the current circumstances of your life. And you have to get in touch with who you feel that you really are, and separate that from what you are projecting into the world and what you are trying to convince yourself of. You have to go to a deep and a comfortable place of honesty to really get a sense of who that person is, and to understand how to begin to change it. This is Derek L. Mitchell, and I'm challenging you to ask yourself, who am I? And take the focus off of empty and unsatisfying resolutions and focus on figuring out who you are and creating a strong, empowering, and permanent identity for yourself that will impact the rest of your life, starting with this upcoming year. And if you can do this, then you can conquer the fear of your true identity, claim the confidence of knowing exactly who you are, find your voice, and live life that reflects your core and true identity. And I will see you on the next episode of the Fearless Factory.